I mean, to be fair, their originals are also terrible, but this is on another level. What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock NBA, and today we are here to talk about familiar but very risky territory, and that is cover songs. And I say that because on one hand, a great cover song can make a band's career, but for every great cover song, there's probably like 1,000 terrible ones. And even if you do nail the cover, there's always the risk that you're going to be known more for the cover than for any of your original songs. And so today we are going to look at some examples of the worst and the best rock and metal cover songs from bands like Killswitch, Engage, Limp Bizkit, Metallica, Prevail, Puddle of Mud, and many more, and ask the question, were they great or were they terrible? But if you haven't, check me out on Twitch. I'm streaming twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 7 p.m. Pacific. There's a link to that in the description of this video. But first, I want to thank Cove for sponsoring this video. They sent me their split speaker, and I have to say, I really like this thing. First, and most importantly, this thing sounds great. It even has a subwoofer, which is really impressive for such a small speaker. It also connects to smartphones, tablets, or computers via Bluetooth 4.2. I was able to pair it with my phone in a couple seconds, super easy, and it operates for up to 7 hours on a single battery charge. And this speaker can be up to 33 feet away from your device, so it's perfect for listening to music or a podcast while you walk around the house or the backyard. And you can also split it in half like this for a better stereo image. Kind of gives you this 360-degree surround effect, and it has a water resistance rating of IPX7. So if you want to use it by your hot tub or whatever, you are good. And best of all, if you want to check it out, they're offering a 67% discount to my viewers. Just go to the link in the description of this video and use the discount code PUNKROCK at checkout. First up, let's talk about everybody's favorite band, Limp Bizkit, and their cover of Faith, originally by George Michael from their first album, which I think is kind of the formula for something that went on to be very, very popular, and that is taking a hit pop song and basically adding screaming to it. Objectively, I would say this is a pretty great song, although their version of it, I would say, is not a great performance, mostly because Fred is just a pretty limited vocalist, especially back then on the first album. But did it need to be great? Probably not, because it is a catchy song, and if you're the typical, like, 16-year-old Limp Bizkit fan from back then, who is jacked up on Mountain Dew and pizza bites, and thinks that Conker's Bad Fur Day is the most hilarious thing of all time, then you don't give a shit if this song is good or not. You're just like, dude, it's that Faith song, but he's screaming. So is it a good song? I would say no. But it was very good marketing for the band, and sometimes that matters more. Next up, a bit of a controversial one. Disturbed's cover of The Sound of Silence, originally by Simon & Garfunkel. This one kind of came out of nowhere back in 2016, and they did change it up quite a bit. The original is kind of like a folky singer-songwriter kind of song, but Disturbed added all these orchestral elements and did the vocals kind of in your standard Disturbed hard rock metal kind of style, and it actually ended up being a huge hit for them. It was their biggest song since the song that kind of put them on the map, Down with the Sickness.
Hear my words and I'm a high teacher. Take my arms and I'm a high reacher.
And the reaction to this song was very interesting. A lot of people seem to think this is some sort of travesty that completely butchered the original because they missed the point of the lyrics or whatever. To me, that just kind of feels like metal people being contrarian and hating something just because it was popular. But either way, Paul Simon went on the record as saying he thought the song was great and he loved it, so that kind of settles the debate to me. And personally, I think it's amazing. To be honest, I didn't really even pay attention to the lyrics or think about what they're about, although normally I am a big lyrics guy. I think in this case, it's as simple as the vocals, because I think there's just something that's really inherently powerful and moving about an incredible vocal performance that we just connect with on an emotional level that transcends the meaning of the lyrics or any of that other stuff. Like when you see some kid sing opera on America's Got Talent and everyone tears up, even though they have no idea what he's singing about. To me, that's the same thing that's happening with this song, and I think it's great. Next up is a truly bizarre moment, and that is Crazy Town covering The New Noise by Refused. And I know what you're thinking, wait a minute, what? Seriously? And yeah, I get it. This is like something I would make up for a joke, but I do have video proof that it actually happened. And what better evidence that we all just live in a simulation designed to amuse our sick overlords, whoever they are, than seeing Shifty Shellshock up on stage with his spiky hair and landing strip and star tattoos saying "sick with it" while covering one of the most respected post-hardcore bands of all time. If that isn't proof of a simulation, I don't know what is. Now, is this good? No, absolutely not. It's terrible. Although I do not ironically love Crazy Town. But even though it's bad, I still love this cover. Just because Refused fans can be so pretentious, they're like the ultimate in hipster hardcore. And I know how upset this cover makes them. I can picture the tears of rage streaming down their face, and I love it. And next up, we have Alien Ant Farm's cover of Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson.
Annie, you okay? You okay? You okay, Annie? Annie, you okay? Would you tell us that you're okay?
And this is a great example of what I mentioned in the intro. This was a huge song for them back in 2001 that got tons and tons of mainstream airplay. It was all over MTV. Everybody loved this song. But as you probably know, they really weren't able to follow this up, and they never got anywhere near as much success with any of their originals, which is a shame because the band is actually really, really good. If you like this song, definitely check out the whole album. They were easily one of the best, like, nu metal adjacent kind of bands of the early 2000s. Fantastic stuff. We should also talk about this gem, which came out while I was editing this video, and that is MGK covering Aerials by System of a Down. I don't have a lot to say about this one. I think it kind of speaks for itself. And next up is Bad Wolf's cover of Zombie, originally by the Cranberries. And this one is kind of like the flip side of the Alien Ant Farm story. This cover was definitely the song that really helped Bad Wolves break out and put them on the map. Partly because it came out, I think, like a week or so after Dolores from Cranberries died, and she was originally going to contribute vocals to the song. So part of it was just kind of, I don't want to say lucky timing because it's a terrible thing that happened, but part of it was, I guess, just the timing. But regardless, this song was huge for them. And as much as a lot of people want to discredit them as being like a band that just got huge off of a cover, I don't think that's fair at all, because the fact of the matter is that they were able to take the momentum from their cover of Zombie and turn that into something. If you look, their next 6 singles all hit the top 10 rock charts, including 3 number ones, and they've really cemented themselves as one of the biggest bands in their cohort of the newer active rock kind of bands. So I think that it's really not fair to put them in that category, although I would say this is a great cover. And next up is Killswitch Engage's cover of Holy Diver by Dio, which to me is really just the perfect way to do a cover of a song like this.
Holy diver, you've been down too long in the midnight sea.
First of all, I think what really makes it work is that they made it their own. Like, if you didn't know, you might not actually even realize that this was a cover, because they just so effectively turned it into a metalcore song that it just sounds like a Killswitch song. And probably part of that is because they really just were kind of like the updated 2000s version of Dio in a lot of ways, but still, they really made it their own, which is something that I think is a common element for almost all good covers. Like, what's the point of covering a song if it's just a slightly less good version of the original? And also the video, it's great, but in a really kind of nuanced way that's hard to do. Like, it really rides that line between like tribute and parody, which is a really difficult thing to do. Because, I mean, let's be real, Dio was kind of a goofy band with all the demons and wizards kind of imagery. A great band, yes, but kind of goofy, right? But instead of trying to run away from that and like play it super straight, the video plays into all that. And so on the one hand, it's obvious that they authentically love this song, but also they're having fun with it. And so it comes off as this kind of like fun, lighthearted tribute that pays respect to the band, but also sort of acknowledges where it's a little bit silly. To me, this is a 10 out of 10. Very well done. And next up, I Prevail's cover of Blank Space by Taylor Swift from back in 2014.
We're young and we're reckless. We'll take this way too far. It'll lead to breathless. War with the nasty scar.
And again, I think this is an example of a band that used a cover to their advantage in a very smart way. Like, yes, this is for sure the song that put them on the map. And on the one hand, you know, it is a somewhat corny cover of a mainstream pop song, but it seems like there was always a calculated plan there, because just like with Bad Wolves, these guys were able to parlay the momentum from that cover into a great career. And like I said, it feels like there was always a plan. Like this didn't feel like an accident. For example, one really smart thing they did is at the end of this video, they plugged their new single.
Check out the video of our debut single, Below. Keep an eye out, expect more from us.
And I think a lot of other bands saw this and the success that they had with it, and that inspired the whole massive wave of kind of uninspired, shitty metalcore covers that were all over YouTube for the next several years. And yes, I'm aware that metalcore covers of pop songs have been a thing for a long time. I did a whole video about the Punk Goes Pop series, but I feel like after this song came out, there was a whole new wave of that. Bands saw this and they're like, oh, okay, so that's the cheat code to blowing up. And so of course they jumped on the bandwagon, and that's how we ended up with 9 million shitty metalcore covers of Wrecking Ball. But unless I'm missing something, I don't really think it ever worked out for another band like it did for I Prevail and Our Last Night. Both very smart bands, because guess what? It is not that simple. There is no cheat code to success. It takes much more than just throwing up a lazy, shitty cover of a pop song. And next, we have Puddle of Mud's infamous cover of About a Girl by Nirvana, which I think we can all agree is just not great.
Take it, then it's wrong. You hang me out to dry.
I mean, it is just so awkward. Like, you can see all the other guys in the band sitting there doing their job that they were hired to do, just playing the bass or guitar or whatever, trying to keep a straight face and not laugh or turn red or whatever, because it's obvious from like the first note that comes out of his mouth that this is not a good cover. And as much as it obviously sucks and, you know, everyone was dunking on this guy for it, my question is, how does this happen? I'm not the biggest fan of Puddle of Mud or whatever, but something is wrong here, right? I mean, these guys have been making music for like 20 years. They are pros. This is not some local band. So how do they blow it this badly? Well, my friend Mary over at Voice Hacks made a great video kind of going into depth about it. She's a voice coach and she really gets into a lot of technical details. I would suggest you watch that if you're interested. But what it comes down to, I think, is that he was just trying to sing a song that was out of his range.
This guy had the right grit and tone, actually. Again, it just sounds a little too high. I would love to hear this redone a minor third down.
And, you know, really, it's just as simple as we all have bad days, and it seems like this was one of his. I'm not really a fan of how everyone wanted to just like dunk on the guy, but still, clearly, this was not a good cover. And next up, Metallica's cover of Last Caress by the Misfits off their Garage Days EP. And I don't really think that this cover itself is great, just because it almost always sounds weird and bad to me when these like really tight, precise metal bands cover punk songs. Just feels like kind of uptight and stiff. So I don't think it's a great cover, but I do think it was a very important one because it introduced millions of kids to punk. Like, I remember all the Hesher kids at my junior high school who normally only listened to stuff like Megadeth and Testament and Iron Maiden and had the like Beavis and Butthead fringy hair and leather jackets and stuff. Somehow they all knew this song. And I was like, what? How did these guys know a punk song? Because back then, like, punk and metal were two different worlds that really, you know, did not mix like they do now. And then my friend Matt showed me the Garage Days EP, and I realized, oh, it is 100% because of Metallica. That is how they knew about the Misfits, and I have to wonder how many other kids were like that, and like how many millions of kids from my generation ended up getting into punk because of Metallica, and specifically this EP. And next up, we have a really interesting example of the opposite dynamic, which is Korn covering One by Metallica live on MTV. It's a live recording, so it's not quite as good as what I'm sure the studio version would be, but you get the idea. If the last one was about a really tight metal band covering a loose punk song, this is kind of the opposite, although it's not that Korn is loose. They aren't at all. They're very tight in their own way. But what I mean is that they're just a lot more like fluid and groove-based than Metallica. And so I thought it was really interesting to hear what a thrash song would sound like put through the filter of a nu metal band. And as it turns out, it sounds pretty fucking cool. Much better than the opposite when all the thrash bands tried to do nu metal in the 90s, which was pretty much 100% bad. So what is the verdict on this cover? I would say it's great. Next up, another interesting one, Children of Bodom's cover of Oops, I Did It Again by Britney Spears. And I don't really have a lot to say about this one, other than I just kind of love that it exists. It's obviously a joke, they didn't intend this to be some piece of like epic art or whatever. They're just having fun. But that's exactly why I like it, because it shows that a quote unquote serious metal band like Children of Bodom can have fun and do silly stuff like a Britney Spears cover. And that might sound kind of obvious, but I think this is something a lot of metal bands need to remember. You don't have to be super uptight about absolutely everything and take yourself super seriously to keep your metal cred. Like, remember, it's okay to have fun. So is this cover good? I don't know if I would say that, but it's not intended to be good, but I do think it's pretty great for what it is. And next, one of the all-time greats from the golden age of punk goes pop, The Devil Wears Prada covering Still Fly by Big Timers. And I think there's a few interesting things here. Number one, even though this was a huge song, I would argue that The Devil Wears Prada are more relevant now than Big Timers are. Kind of an interesting role reversal there. Number two, this is another great example of how they really made this song their own. This really sounds like a Prada song, unlike a lot of the covers on these comps, where they really didn't do much to it other than scream the chorus and maybe add a breakdown or something. I think that this song, along with a couple of the other big ones like I Set My Friends on Fire's cover of Crank That, probably played a big role in how diverse the musical taste of scene kids was back then. And what I mean by that is, like I said earlier, when I was in high school, you could only listen to one kind of music. You could pick punk, rap, metal, ska, whatever, but that was it. You could only listen to one. I personally have never really been like that, and I always thought that kind of mindset was so limiting, but that's how it was back then in the 90s. But starting around the mid 2000s with the MySpace kids, I started to notice that that was different. They liked metalcore, obviously, and scene music, but they also liked mainstream pop and rap. And I'm not really sure if covers like this were more of the cause of that or an effect, like which way the causal relationship goes. But either way, I thought it was really refreshing to see, and this song is one of the OGs. So would I say it's good? I don't know that I would choose to listen to it now, but in the context of the time, yeah, I think it was great. But what did not age so well is 6 Feet Under's cover of TNT by AC/DC, which is just bad, confusingly bad. It is so terrible that you wonder who signed off on this and why. To be fair, their originals are also terrible, but this is on another level. This sounds like something off of South Park when they're trying to make fun of metal, like if Cartman started a band or something. And what's great is that if you like this, there's lots and lots more where this came from, because they have a whole album of covers. My personal favorite is probably their cover of Stepping Stone by the Monkees, which is just bizarre. And next up, one of the most interesting covers of all time, which is Johnny Cash covering Hurt, originally by 9 Inch Nails.
I hurt myself today.
And I really can't think of a more dramatic contrast of genres between industrial and country. Now, to be fair, although 9 Inch Nails is obviously an industrial band, the original version of Hurt isn't really the most industrial song that they ever did. It's kind of a slow acoustic guitar kind of song that does lend itself well to country, but still, it's just really cool to see someone from another generation reach across genre lines like that and for it to come out so well. A 9 Inch Nails fan can listen to this and love it. A Johnny Cash fan can listen to it and love it. Someone who doesn't know either can listen to it and love it. Incredibly well done. And most of all, what this says to me is that a truly great song works in any style or genre. You take a song like this and you can make it work as a metal song, a pop song, a ska song, electronic, it doesn't matter. If it's a great song and a great performer, it's gonna sound great no matter what you do with it. And next, we have Avenged Sevenfold's cover of Walk by Pantera. And this is an interesting one to me because it's a great example of why there's some bands that you probably just shouldn't cover, at least not unless you're gonna really transform the song into something different than the original. And to be clear, I absolutely love Avenged Sevenfold. I think they're among the very best musicians of their generation, and I think this cover really comes as close as you possibly could to sounding like Pantera without being Pantera, because that's just how good Avenged Sevenfold is. But even still, it's just missing something, you know? Just kind of flat. And I don't think that's a knock on Avenged Sevenfold. I think it is just a testament to how special and great Pantera was. They're one of those bands where you were just never gonna do Pantera as well as Pantera. The same is true of Slayer, of Linkin Park, of Korn, any of those like generational iconic type of bands that kind of like invented a genre. So I feel like with songs like this by those kind of artists, unless you're gonna do something totally different with it, like turn it into pop punk or ska or hyperpop or something, I would say just don't do it, because it is never gonna stand up to comparison with the original. But whatever you do, don't do it like our final song, which is an absolute abomination, Real Big Fish's cover of Take On Me by Aha. And to be clear, this is a great song. It's an absolute classic. So the fact that their version of it is terrible and sounds like some awful zany local band at a battle of the bands in some half-empty high school auditorium really says a lot. Like, how do you fuck up a song this great? Well, the answer is easy. You make it ska. That is how. All right, my friends, that does it for this video. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Would you be interested in seeing another episode of this? And if so, what song should I include? And also, as always, I want to thank my patrons, especially those of you who support at the true cult level or above. Patrons get every podcast a week early. I do giveaways. I do Q&As. There's a way to have me review your music. All you need to do is join at the $10 and up level. Every month, I do a call for submissions. Just drop your music in the comments of that post, then I'll review it live on Twitch and post it on Patreon for everyone to see. So if that sounds cool to you, hit the link in the description of this video. And with that, I'm going to sign off for now, but I will see you next time.